Hi again guys, and welcome to episode 27 of Import Nights, the review series for the JDM performance cars of GranTurismo, a very popular category of course. And this particular episode is inspired to some degree by last week's episode of Forget Your Warranty, the aftermarket tuner series, because in that particular episode we featured possibly the best aftermarket tuner car of that series so far. Not the quickest or the most powerful, but the car which saw the biggest improvement over the normal model. A car which wasn't just different to the production model or just looked better, but that was genuinely better in virtually every way. And even the ways that it wasn't better, it was at least as good as the normal version. So we're now reviewing that normal version, the mass production version of the TRD Sports M Celica. This is the ZZT231 Celica, and basically I have the same opinion that I had, of course, last week, and that is that this model is for pure fans of the rally age Celicas, which is essentially most Celicas before this, apart from of course the original. This is kind of a disappointment. You don't get all-wheel drive, you don't get big power, you don't get big rally-style performance. It's kind of a step backward. Now that being said, you can understand why they did that. This car is aimed at a different market, times were changing of course, it's not a WRC car anymore, so that wasn't a necessity, and it's just aiming for a completely different crowd. That being said, it is still kind of a disappointment that the Celica isn't a step forward really in any particular way, apart from maybe weight, over the extremely capable ST185 and ST205 Celicas in particular. Now, we touched on some of the specs of this particular car in the TRD Celica episode. We discussed the fact that that car's got roughly 100 horsepower more, it's got more torque, the PP is much more relevant, and the price is only fractionally higher. So, as a recap, the ways in which this model is the same as the TRD version is roughly the price. You're looking at a price of just under 22 grand for this car, 22,500 I believe it was for the TRD version, so there's really nothing between them. The weight is also exactly the same at 954 kilos, fully tuned, and apart from that, the engine is the same at a 1.8 litre turbo, but apart from those things, your power's different, your horsepower per tonne of course is different, your torque is different, your PP is different, and the performance and handling are notably different of course, as well as are the visuals. So, I said that the TRD version was a huge improvement over this model, and I also said that I was disappointed with this car after the ST205 and 185. Does that mean then that this is not a good car? Well, I wouldn't go that far. It's not a bad car. It's just not very good compared to what you can get from the TRD version. That particular car is so good for a marginally higher price that there's really no reason to buy this car. Now, if somebody won't let you use the TRD version, then fair enough, but that is the only scenario where that would be relevant. And of course that also goes for seasonal events. Some seasonal events may not let you use the TRD, and I would classify that as the same as a lobby owner not letting you use it, so that's still the same issue. Apart from that one very niched issue, there's really nothing to make this car the favourable choice over the TRD version. If you compare it to something like the trial version, well, that's a completely different ballgame, because that car isn't amazing. Some people do like it, but for 125 grand, it's just not that great a car. So compared to that, this car, which is over 100 grand cheaper, looks great in my opinion. Compared to the TRD model though, it just doesn't stand up that well. That being said, you're still looking at some pretty decent numbers. 361 horsepower, 226 foot-pounds of torque, and a PP which is reasonably relevant at just under 500. So potentially it could be useful. The weight is still nice and low, the horsepower per tonne is pretty high for what it is at 378, and although it is barely cheaper than the tuned version, 22 grand is still not very much at all. Now, what about the way it drives? because that's of course the most important difference. What does it actually do on the track, not just on paper? Well, it goes exactly the same way as on paper. The TRD is better in every way. The TRD version has better acceleration, better top speed, better handling, brakes, grip, drivability, beginner friendliness. Everything is better on that model. So overall, it has to be a fairly simple review for this car, because unless you specifically want this version, it's not bad in any particular way. It's just pointless. There is no reason to buy this car instead of the TRD version. So if you are a Celica fan and you want to use this generation, then you are so much better off to just get the TRD version. It's a better car straight out of the factory, and when you fully tune it, the difference is even more apparent. So this isn't a bad car, it's just one of those fairly few models which I would say you just don't need to buy. So that's it overall for this brief but as needed review for the Celica ZZT231 generation. Buy the TRD version. That's it overall for this particular pick. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.